Heavenly Ever After looks like a sweet afterlife romance at first, but do not let the soft lighting fool you. This drama is basically a heavenly customer service center forcing every dead person to read the emotional fine print they ignored while alive. The story begins on a subway for the dead. This train carries souls toward the afterlife, and after it passes the bridge between worlds, the next stop is hell. Everyone on board is praying, because the people who did wrong in life will be dragged off at that station, whether they want to go or not. Lee Hae-sook is sure she belongs there. In life, Hae-sook worked as a loan shark. Every day, she went around collecting monthly interest, and every day, people cursed her for it. They called her heartless and wished punishment on her, but Hae-sook never stopped. It was ugly work, but it kept her household alive. The moment she got home, Hae-sook always rinsed her mouth with liquor, as if she were washing away every hateful word she had heard outside. She did not want to bring that bad energy near her husband, Nak-jun. Nak-jun had been bedridden for decades. When Hae-sook was only 20, he became paralyzed, and from then on, she cared for him for almost 60 years. She fed him, cleaned him, watched over him, and built a harsh life around keeping both of them alive. Even after all that time, they still loved each other deeply. Their affection was so sweet that Lee Young-ae, the woman who lived with Hae-sook and worked for her, could barely stand it. Every time she overheard the couple being tender, she wanted to knock herself out just to avoid the embarrassment. Nak-jun felt guilty because Hae-sook had spent her whole life on him. But to Hae-sook, he was still her husband, and to him, she was still the most beautiful woman in the world. He once told her she was beautiful at 20, beautiful at 40, and most beautiful now. Those words stay with her. One day, Hae-sook goes to collect money from a borrower and finds that the man has died. Even at his funeral, she insists the debt must be paid. The dead man's daughter curses her, saying Hae-sook will go to hell with that money in her hands. Hae-sook is shaken. She is not afraid of suffering for herself. She is afraid that Nak-jun, who is kind and gentle, will go to heaven while she goes to hell, leaving them separated forever. Young-ae tells her not to worry. Hae-sook may look harsh to outsiders, but Young-ae knows another side of her. When Young-ae was a child, her drunken father beat her and left her hungry. Hae-sook took Young-ae away as repayment for the father's debt, but in truth, she saved her life. Then Nak-jun dies. After his death, Hae-sook loses the will to live. Young-ae notices that Hae-sook is not taking her medicine and seems to be preparing to follow him. Hae-sook says she is tired of caring for people. Soon after, she passes away too. At Hae-sook's funeral, a strange man calls to her soul, and she appears outside her body. That is how she ends up on the subway to the afterlife. When the train reaches hell, terrifying hands reach in from outside the windows. The doors open, and Hae-sook tries to stand because she believes this is where she belongs. But she cannot move. Instead, other souls are pulled up and dragged out by an invisible force. When the doors close again, Hae-sook realizes she was not selected for hell. She is going to heaven. In heaven, Hae-sook arrives at an entry counseling desk. A cheerful consultant checks her record and asks whom she wants to live with. Hae-sook immediately asks whether Nak-jun is there. The consultant says he is, and even better, Nak-jun has already chosen Hae-sook too. Then comes the next question. The consultant asks what age Hae-sook wants to keep in heaven. Most people choose their 20s or 30s, but Hae-sook remembers Nak-jun's words. If he said she was most beautiful now, then she will trust him. She chooses to remain 80 years old. The consultant is shocked, but the choice is accepted. Hae-sook follows the pull of her heart to find Nak-jun. She is so excited that she tries to run, but her elderly knees immediately remind her what she signed up for. At last, she reaches Nak-jun's heavenly home and knocks on the door. The door opens, and Hae-sook freezes. Nak-jun is young, not a little younger, but handsome, healthy, and in his 30s. He recognizes her and is thrilled, but Hae-sook is stunned. She kept her old appearance because of him, while he returned to the body of a young man. Nak-jun happily shows her the home he prepared and even leads her toward the bedroom, but the moment becomes awkward when he tries to lift her and cannot. Hae-sook slips outside to breathe. In heaven, she sees that almost everyone chose youth. Only she looks old. That night, she sleeps separately from Nak-jun, pretending nothing is wrong. But inside, she feels embarrassed and hurt. She believed his words so completely, and now she wonders if she was foolish. The next day, Nak-jun takes her to the Heaven Support Center. There, Hae-sook learns how strange heaven can be. She meets a young little girl who speaks like an elderly woman. The woman beside the girl explains that the child is actually her mother-in-law. In life, the younger woman had been sick, and her mother-in-law cared for her better than anyone. Before dying, the woman asked that in the next life, her mother-in-law be born as her child so she could repay that kindness. In heaven, that wish has taken form. This moves Hae-sook deeply. Heaven is not just about being rewarded. It is full of wishes, debts, and relationships that never finished properly. Hae-sook also wanders into a group that looks, at first, like elderly people and children gathering for some kind of orientation. She thinks she has finally found people who look closer to her age and tries to blend in. But then the staff leads the group outside, and a group of young people comes running toward them. The people Hae-sook followed suddenly transform into dogs. They were pets waiting in heaven for their owners. The dogs rush into their owners' arms after waiting for who knows how long, and the owners break down as they hug them again. Watching that reunion helps Hae-sook understand another rule of heaven. Love does not have to be human to leave a soul waiting. While she is still adjusting, Hae-sook notices a mysterious girl in black watching her. The girl feels familiar, but Hae-sook cannot place her. Since she made plenty of enemies while collecting debts, she assumes the girl might be someone who hated her in life. Later, the same girl knocks over a bottle of water exactly like Hae-sook's cat used to do. Hae-sook realizes the girl is Sonya, her cat. Sonya acts proud and distant, but when Hae-sook worries about her ear, Sonya comes closer. Then, with perfect cat-like cruelty, Sonya asks why Hae-sook looks so old and whether she plans to stay like that forever. That question breaks Hae-sook's confidence. She goes back to the office with Nak-jun and asks to become young. The consultant says that is impossible. Nak-jun tries to argue, but no one will change the rule. Hae-sook then asks if Nak-jun can become old instead. The consultant says that might be possible. Nak-jun panics. When Hae-sook sees his reaction, she realizes he does not want that either. In the end, she cannot force him. She still loves his young face because that is the face she first fell for. Meanwhile, back on Earth, young A is grieving badly. She sees a shop claiming to communicate with the dead and goes inside. The fraud tells her that Hae-sook is still wandering the road to the afterlife because she is worried about young A. Young A believes it and decides she should die too, so she can go find Hae-sook. In heaven, another problem appears inside Hae-sook's home. She returns and finds a young woman throwing herself into Nak-jun's arms. Hae-sook immediately assumes the worst and grabs both of them by the hair. Nak-jun explains that his job in heaven is to deliver messages from the living to the dead. On his first day, he saw this woman on the subway to hell. She felt strangely familiar, and when she was about to be dragged off, he held her back without thinking. The woman has lost her memory. She remembers only Nak-jun's name. Since people meant for hell lose their memories if they enter heaven, she may be a hell escapee. But she has nowhere else to go, so Nak-jun brings her home and names her Samyi. Hae-sook is furious. To her, this sounds less like charity and more like her young husband rescuing a pretty young woman. Samyi makes it worse by calling Hae-sook grandma, forcing Nak-jun to tell her that this grandma is his wife. The next morning, Hae-sook finds a grape-like object on the floor. It plays back footage of her attacking people. Nak-jun explains that in heaven, when someone commits a wrong, a grape record falls. If a person collects 6, they are sent to hell. Because of the fight, Hae-sook already has 4. Hae-sook tells Nak-jun to get rid of Samyi before she comes back from correction class. But Nak-jun takes Samyi to the center and learns that hell is searching for an escapee. If Samyi really is that person, being caught would be worse than hell. He cannot abandon her, so he brings her back. Samyi tries to recover her own memory in the most direct way possible. She takes a pan and hits herself in the head, hoping the shock will bring something back. It does not work. Instead, she remains lost, clingy, and strangely attached to Hae-sook's home. Hae-sook reaches her limit. She says Nak-jun can live however he wants, and she will go live with her mother instead. At the Heaven Center, Hae-sook confirms that her mother is also in heaven. Her mother lives in the year 1950, so Hae-sook takes a bus through time and finds her in an old house. Her mother appears young, but she recognizes Hae-sook immediately and welcomes her like a child. Hae-sook cries beside her, saying a mother will always treat her like a daughter, even if she is old. while a husband with no blood relation may not understand her. Her mother then tells her the truth about her birth. Hae-sook's father once brought another woman into the house. That woman gave birth to Hae-sook but never raised her. Hae-sook's mother, who was not her biological mother, cared for the baby and loved her completely. Later, Hae-sook's father and the biological mother died in an accident. Hae-sook realizes that the mother who loved her was not tied to her by blood. Her mother tells her that blood is not the only bond. Some ties are made by fate, care, and the decision to stay. The next morning, Nak-jun arrives and respectfully bows to his mother-in-law. Hae-sook returns home with him, and the couple begins to soften toward each other again. Back at home, Hae-sook begins to suspect that Samyi may actually be Young-ae. There are too many familiar details. Sonya recognizes Samyi, even though the cat only knew Hae-sook and Young-ae on Earth. Samyi moves like Young-ae, reacts quickly like her, and sleeps beside Hae-sook with one hand tucked into her pocket, exactly as Young-ae used to do when she was little. Hae-sook goes to the Heaven Center and asks whether Young-ae is alive. The answer shocks her. Young-ae is dead, but she is not in heaven. That means Young-ae may be in hell. Hae-sook becomes convinced that Samyi is Young-ae in a different form. Nak-jun is doubtful, but Hae-sook argues that heaven can change age and appearance, so why not this? At dinner, Nak-jun tests Samyi by saying Young-ae used to eat from a huge bowl. Samyi immediately starts eating like that and says she can finish 4 bowls. To Hae-sook, that settles it. Meanwhile, Hae-sook keeps attending correction classes at the church. She is not a model student. She sleeps, complains about the pastor, and earns another grape after insulting him. Now she is only one mistake away from hell. At the church, she meets a strange elderly man whose clothes are always wet and cold. His name is Park Kyeol-jin. Soon, hell's messengers surround the church because they are searching for an escapee. Park Kyeol-jin admits he is the one they want. In life, Park Kyeol-jin cared for his wife, who had dementia. He was also dying of late-stage colon cancer. Since there would be no one to care for his wife after his death, he took her to the sea, intending to die with her. Now he has escaped hell because he only wants to know whether his wife made it to heaven. When the messengers close in, Park Kyeol-jin pulls out a knife and takes Hae-sook hostage. The center director tells him not to do anything foolish, but Park only wants confirmation about his wife. Then Nak-jun arrives with a message from Earth. It is a scarf Park Kyeol-jin's wife knitted for him. Even with dementia, she remembered to finish it. Park Kyeol-jin breaks down. The scarf proves his wife remembered him. Nak-jun tells him that if he goes to hell and accepts his punishment, he may still have a chance to meet her in heaven someday. Park lets Hae-sook go and leaves with the messengers, wearing the scarf. Hae-sook returns home shaken, and Samyi hugs her in relief. Then the story reveals the truth to us. Samyi is not Young-ae. The real Young-ae is in hell. Hae-sook's final grape falls soon after. Samyi wants a drink, so Hae-sook tries to use her merit money at a vending machine. The machine says her balance is too low. Hae-sook thinks it swallowed her money and smashes it with a stone. The sky in heaven turns dark. An alarm sounds. A vehicle from hell arrives and opens its door to a bottomless darkness. Nak-jun runs over, but Hae-sook is pulled inside. In hell, Hae-sook sees the punishments waiting for the guilty. King Yamra and the judges assign souls to different hells according to their sins: violence, theft, fraud, lies, adultery, drunken crime, and words used to deceive others. Hell is brutal, and no excuse matters there. Some sinners still try to argue. One man says he was already punished on earth, so he refuses to listen after death. The judges immediately show him that hell is not interested in debate. Another soul, who used words to deceive countless victims, is dragged toward a punishment for the tongue. Others are sent toward fire, freezing cold, burning wind, or sealed rooms depending on what they did in life. Hae-sook is forced to watch, and the sightseeing tour is not symbolic. It is terrifying. The whole point is to show the undecided souls that hell is not a place anyone should casually risk. Hae-sook is not immediately assigned to one punishment. She is placed in an undecided group where she finds Young-ae trembling. King Yamra explains that some souls are near-death visitors, while others are uncertain cases. They will see hell and, if they return to life, understand why people should live kindly. Nak-jun cannot wait in heaven. He gets off at the hell station to find Hae-sook. The guards recognize that he is from heaven, but they allow him to search. If he can find his wife in the 8 hells, he may have a chance to take her back. Hae-sook and Young-ae are eventually brought to a scale. If the weight of a soul's sin goes over 50 kilograms, that soul stays in hell. When Young-ae's turn approaches, Hae-sook steps in front of her and says she will take Young-ae's punishment. King Yamra laughs. Hell does not allow that kind of substitution. Hae-sook steps onto the scale. It lands exactly at 50 kilograms. She has reached the line. Young-ae cries, and Hae-sook cries too. One tear falls, and the weight drops by the smallest amount. That tiny shift saves her. When Young-ae steps onto the scale, the ground shakes, but the number reads 0. King Yamra is annoyed, but the judgment stands. Hae-sook and Young-ae are allowed to return. At the same time, Nak-jun begs to have Hae-sook back. King Yamra says he can take her if he endures every punishment in hell. Nak-jun jumps into the punishment without hesitation. Instead of screaming in pain, he wakes back in heaven. Hae-sook and Young-ae return too. Once they calm down, Hae-sook says Young-ae came to hell looking for her, but Nak-jun says Young-ae did not go with him. That is when they finally realize Samyi is not Young-ae. Hae-sook thinks Samyi must be lying, so she takes Young-ae to confront her. But before they do, they find Samyi at the Heaven Center, asking to be sent back to hell if that will bring Hae-sook home safely. Hae-sook sees that Samyi's concern is real. Nak-jun, however, is punished for going to hell. His heavenly postman job is suspended. He tries to act calm, but he is devastated. That job gave him purpose. Without it, he feels like he is back in the bed he spent 60 years trapped in on Earth. The center director explains that good deeds from life become money in heaven. If someone Hae-sook helped thanks her, that kindness can turn into merit money. Soon, a young man comes to thank her. He was once the lonely old borrower whose funeral Hae-sook visited. In life, he had been a scrap collector. Hae-sook collected interest from him, but she also had Young-ae help push his cart. One day, when he planned to end his lonely life, Hae-sook knocked on his door to return one bill she had overcharged. She also brought him 2 ears of corn and told him to eat one each day. After that, she kept bringing corn. He could never throw away what she gave him, and those small visits kept him alive until his natural death. His own family never came, but Hae-sook did. When he thanks her, Hae-sook receives the merit money from that kindness. Another woman thanks her too. This woman had died with no relatives to hold a funeral. Hae-sook arranged one for her and filled the room with borrowers by offering to cancel interest for anyone who attended. Because of Hae-sook, the woman did not leave the world alone. Through these meetings, Hae-sook realizes heaven remembers more than reputation. The living cursed her as a loan shark, but the afterlife also records the small mercies she gave people. Nak-jun's job is restored, and Samyi asks to follow him to Earth so she can recover her memory. On Earth, an image on someone's clothes triggers a strong reaction in her. At the same time, Hae-sook feels uneasy. She first thinks something is wrong with Young-ae, who has developed a dramatic crush on the center director. Young-ae keeps approaching him, asking whether he is single, and the powerful director runs from her in genuine fear. But Hae-sook soon realizes the real source of her anxiety. Her mother-in-law is in heaven. Nak-jun casually mentions that his mother is there and asks if Hae-sook wants to meet her. Hae-sook panics and tries to hide any sign that she has arrived. But when she turns around, her mother-in-law is already standing there in a young body. Hae-sook pretends not to recognize her, but the mother-in-law sees through the lie immediately. She has a key to Nak-jun's house, so she comes inside and begins checking everything. The kitchen, the refrigerator, the bedding, even Hae-sook's hands. Hae-sook feels judged and invaded. Later, the mother-in-law returns with side dishes and lighter kitchen tools, replacing Hae-sook's heavy pots and pans. To the mother-in-law, this is help. To Hae-sook, it feels like criticism. When Nak-jun tries to help wash dishes, his mother scolds him, saying a man should not do that. Nak-jun argues that times have changed, but the mood remains tense. The mother-in-law tells Hae-sook to wait at home the next day because she wants to take her somewhere. Hae-sook avoids her on purpose by spending all day at church cooking. The pastor, who died at 5 years old, tastes her food and feels a mother's warmth from it. Back home, Young-ae waits with the mother-in-law. The older woman admits that she was not good to Hae-sook in life. She only acted the way her own mother-in-law treated her, thinking that was how families worked. Seeing Hae-sook still old in heaven made her want to help, so she replaced the heavy kitchen tools. but she understands that Hae-sook may not see it that way. She decides she will not come again. That confession changes the meaning of everything Hae-sook saw as criticism. The mother-in-law checking the refrigerator, looking at Hae-sook's hands, changing the cookware, and bringing side dishes were not just attempts to control the house. They were awkward efforts to make Hae-sook's daily work lighter. The problem is that she never learned how to express care without sounding like judgment. When Nak-jun hears this, he is hurt. His mother died early, and he wanted Hae-sook to accept her too. Hae-sook and Nak-jun fall into a cold war. After Hae-sook gets drunk with the pastor and causes trouble, she finally tells Nak-jun the truth of her own sacrifice. She had not drunk alcohol for 60 years, because if she ever got drunk, no one would be able to care for him. Nak-jun is filled with guilt. Hae-sook softens too and says she will try living with his mother. But Nak-jun says his mother promised never to come again. Hae-sook immediately understands what he missed. His mother was preparing to reincarnate. At the reincarnation office, Nak-jun's mother chooses a difficult next life instead of an easy one. The center director explains that reincarnation follows karma and unfinished ties. Nak-jun begs his mother to reconsider, but she has made her choice. The director reveals that Hae-sook and her mother-in-law have been connected many times. In one past life, Hae-sook treated her own daughter-in-law cruelly and drove her to death. In this life, the roles were reversed, so Hae-sook could repay that debt. Yet Nak-jun's mother did not fully destroy her. In the end, she tried to help. This is why the mother-in-law chooses a hard reincarnation. She could ask for comfort, but instead she chooses a path that will build good karma. Nak-jun cannot understand why she would voluntarily choose difficulty, but the director supports her. Her next life may be painful, but it will move her soul forward. At the reincarnation gate, the mother-in-law leaves. Hae-sook and Nak-jun watch her go, and that old resentment finally quiets. While Hae-sook is dealing with family wounds in heaven, Sam-yi continues following Nak-jun to Earth. Through Nak-jun's heavenly watch, Sam-yi can sometimes touch objects in the living world. She likes the feeling of holding his hand and reaching the world through him. One day, when Nak-jun suddenly moves, Sam-yi falls into his arms, and the moment gives her a strange flutter. Later, while they wait for the underworld train, Sam-yi weaves 2 flower rings from memory and puts one on Nak-jun's finger. It becomes clear that she is developing feelings for him. Hae-sook notices a matching flower ring and begins to worry, but before she can confront them, another incident happens on Earth. Nak-jun is approached by an elderly man who thanks him for saving him. The man introduces himself as Detective Kang Jong-gu. The moment Nak-jun hears the name, his expression changes. Kang was connected to the sale of children years ago. Nak-jun demands to know where Kang sold the child. Kang recognizes him and panics. While running away, he is struck by a train and dies. His soul rises and attacks Nak-jun, furious and confused. Sam-yi sees Kang choking Nak-jun and loses control. She transforms into a red-eyed spirit and grabs Kang by the neck. Hell's messengers arrive to take Kang's soul, but Sam-yi will not let go. If she continues, she may be destroyed. Nak-jun begs her to stop, and at the last moment she releases him. Because of this incident, Nak-jun is suspended from work again. Sam-yi apologizes. She says she only wanted to protect him. Her reaction came from somewhere deeper than memory. Around this time, young A meets her father in heaven. The moment she sees him, her body reacts with fear. In childhood, her drunken father came home only to demand money and beat her. She learned to hide because being found meant being hurt. Now he has followed her to Hae-sook's house, and Hae-sook immediately orders him to leave. The father returns the next day and says he can endure any punishment in hell, but he cannot let young A suffer because of him even after death. Young A is furious that a man like him is allowed into heaven at all. She drags him to the center director and demands an explanation. The director says young A's father has already been punished. Heaven is now another form of punishment for him, because here he must experience the fatherly love he never gave and face the pain he caused his daughter. Young A says she will never forgive him. The director tells her she does not have to, but he explains that reincarnation exists so souls can correct and finish old ties. If hatred remains unresolved, the same relationship can repeat again and again. Then he shows them a past life. In that life, Young A and her father were husband and wife, and their daughter was Hae-sook. Young A, then a woman who worked by entertaining men, gave birth to Hae-sook but refused to raise her because she feared motherhood would ruin her beauty and drive the man away. The child was raised by another woman, the mother Hae-sook knew. But Young A did not feel nothing. She once held her baby and wanted to love her. She even bought shoes for her daughter. Before she could give them to the child, she and the man died in a car accident. After seeing this, Young A looks at Hae-sook differently. In a past life, she failed to be Hae-sook's mother. In this life, Hae-sook took Young A in, protected her, and raised her instead. Young A cries in Hae-sook's arms. She wants to stay with Hae-sook forever, but Hae-sook knows Young A must return to life. During a picnic, Hae-sook tells her to go back, live properly, meet someone who loves her, maybe have a child, experience her own life, and only return when she has lived long enough. As Young A begins to glow, Hae-sook tells her that next time, her mother must love her properly. Young A nods and disappears. She returns to Earth. She had not truly died. She had been in a near-death state for 3 months after an accident, and now she wakes up. But another hidden wound is waiting for Hae-sook. At the church, the pastor Ko Yoon-ho has been praying for his mother to come find him. He died at 5 years old and has spent his afterlife with a quiet loneliness. Hae-sook often cooks for him, and the warmth she gives him feels strangely familiar. One day, the pastor asks Hae-sook if she is his mother. Hae-sook says she never had a child. He awkwardly pretends it was a joke, but the question lingers. Sung-yi begins having memories of a child named Yoon-ho. When she tells Nak-jun, he becomes visibly shaken. She assumes Yoon-ho must be Nak-jun's child, but she has never heard that Hae-sook had a child. Then Sung-yi dreams again and realizes the person calling Yoon-ho's name was herself. She concludes that Yoon-ho is her child. When she says this to Nak-jun, more memories return, but they are fragmented and misleading. She sees Nak-jun with Detective Kang during the time when children were being sold. She believes Nak-jun sold Yoon-ho. Another memory shows Nak-jun holding her underwater. Sung-yi becomes terrified and decides Nak-jun is a monster. She hits him and runs away. Nak-jun is left bleeding and desperate because he also wants to know the truth about Yoon-ho. The center director knows, but he does not simply hand over the answer. The truth is tied to memories Hae-sook herself buried. Soon, Heaven announces a lottery dream event. The winner will be allowed to enter a living person's dream and give them winning lottery numbers. Hae-sook wants to win for Young A, who has returned to Earth with little support. To qualify, contestants must find hidden keys around Heaven. Hae-sook tries every trick she can think of, even attempting to bribe the center director with food and praying beside him for hints. Eventually, after searching until she is exhausted, the pastor prays for her and a key falls from the sky. Hae-sook makes it to the final round. In the final, contestants must tell moving stories and win votes. Hae-sook quickly shows how sharp she is. When other contestants tell tragic stories, she questions the details and exposes the parts that make them less pitiful. One contestant is scared into giving up before even speaking. One contestant says his father was injured overseas, his mother left, and his younger brother is now alone. The story almost wins everyone over until Hae-sook asks whether the family home belongs to the brother and where it is located. Once it turns out the brother may benefit from redevelopment, the sympathy drops. Another contestant talks about waiting by the window for missing parents, but Hae-sook catches details that make the story sound like it came from a wealthy household. Hae-sook is not being cruel for fun. She wants the prize for Young A, and she knows pity is a competition here. If someone else's tragedy has a hidden safety net, she will find it. Then Park Kyeol-jin's wife tells her story. She only wants her husband in hell to know that she reached heaven safely and does not want him to worry. Her story is deeply moving, and the votes flood in. Hae-sook realizes her prepared story is not strong enough, so she uses the pastor's story. He says that when he was 5, he waited on a freezing street for the mother who promised to pick him up, but she never came. Hae-sook then tearfully claims that the cruel mother was her. The audience believes it and votes for her. Behind the scenes, some staff think Hae-sook and the pastor are acting. The center director says they are telling the truth, even if they do not fully understand it yet. The pastor is embarrassed, but he does not stop her. Somewhere beneath the performance, he feels the truth pulling at him too. Hae-sook has been feeding him, scolding him, and caring for him in a way that feels too natural to be random. Neither of them has the full memory yet, but heaven has already been placing mother and child beside each other. Hae-sook wins the right to enter Young-ae's dream. At the same time, Sam-yi's memories become clearer and more dangerous. She remembers love with Nak-jun, a child named Yoon-ho, and the feeling that Nak-jun abandoned her. When she confronts him, another memory appears, little Yoon-ho drawing Hae-sook as his mother. Nak-jun finally tells Sam-yi that Yoon-ho is his and Hae-sook's son. Sam-yi still does not fully understand. She thinks she should disappear so Hae-sook and Nak-jun can be together, and she even tries to send herself to hell by copying Hae-sook's vending machine mistake. Nothing happens. Sonya appears and tells her not to bother. Sam-yi will disappear soon anyway. When Sam-yi asks Nak-jun for the truth, he finally reveals it. Sam-yi is not a separate woman. She is the young Hae-sook's sealed memory and pain, given form in heaven. Hae-sook buried that part of herself because it carried memories too terrible for her to survive. As Sam-yi learns this, Hae-sook also feels the buried memories awakening. Sam-yi disappears from Nak-jun's sight, and he rushes home. He finds Hae-sook and Sam-yi inside a strange inner space. Sam-yi is unstable, and Hae-sook keeps saying everything is her fault. Then the lost memory returns. Years ago, Hae-sook took little Yoon-ho shopping. Yoon-ho wanted a toy car, but Hae-sook refused. He stood stubbornly in place, and Hae-sook, frustrated, pretended to walk away and abandon him. When she turned back, he was gone. She searched everywhere. She ran to the church because she had once told Yoon-ho that if he ever got lost, he should wait there. But she arrived too late. Yoon-ho had reached the church, then been frightened away by a stray dog. The detail destroys Hae-sook because it was such a small parenting mistake. She did not sell him, hurt him, or truly abandon him. She only turned away for a moment, trying to teach a stubborn child a lesson. But the world does not care how small a mistake feels before it becomes permanent. That dog was Sonya in a previous life. After remembering this, Sonya later kneels before the pastor in apology. After Yoon-ho disappeared, Hae-sook fell apart. Nak-jun tried to bribe Detective Kang to search harder, but Kang refused because the money was too little. Sam-yi, as the memory of young Hae-sook, saw that moment and misunderstood it, believing Nak-jun had sold the child. This is why Sam-yi's memories were so confusing. She remembered Kang, money, Nak-jun, Yoon-ho, and water, but not the order or the reason. Without the missing context, every fragment made Nak-jun look guilty. Nak-jun later brought more money to the police station, only to learn Kang had quit. Another detective suggested checking orphanages. Nak-jun went and saw Kang speaking with an orphanage director. Kang ran, and Nak-jun chased him into the road, where a car struck him and destroyed his legs. Their son disappeared, and Nak-jun became paralyzed. Under that double blow, Hae-sook sealed the memory away. In the inner space, Sam-yi chokes Hae-sook, furious that Hae-sook erased Yoon-ho in order to keep living. Nak-jun breaks in and takes the blame. He says Hae-sook had wanted to die back then, and he was the one who pulled her back. Sam-yi's anger begins consuming Nak-jun. Then Yoon-ho's voice is heard. The child appears in the form of the pastor. Seeing him, Sam-yi's rage fades. She apologizes again and again. Yoon-ho tells them what happened. He had actually decided to stop asking for the toy and take Hae-sook's hand, but he grabbed the wrong person. When he returned, Hae-sook was gone. Later, after being scared away from the church, he came back at night. Detective Kang found him, knew he had family, and still sold him to the orphanage for profit. Yoon-ho died from the cold after one night, but he says he remembers his mother's warmth. He asks Hae-sook not to forget him again, then decides to reincarnate. Sam-yi's resentment dissolves, and she disappears. Yoon-ho says goodbye too, believing they will meet again someday. For Hae-sook, this is the memory she had buried in order to survive. Losing Yoon-ho broke her, and Nak-jun's accident broke what was left. Forgetting was not proof that she did not love her son. It was the only way she could keep breathing. After recovering the memory of Yoon-ho, Hae-sook finally enters Young-ae's dream to deliver the lottery numbers. The staff warns her to move quickly. If Young-ae wakes up, the dream will end. Hae-sook first wants to look around and see how Young-ae is living, but there is no time. She wakes Young-ae inside the dream and gives her the winning numbers. Young-ae is overjoyed to see Hae-sook, but she is too emotional to focus. Instead of memorizing the numbers, she starts complaining about the hardships of collecting debts without Hae-sook. Hae-sook keeps cutting her off and repeating the numbers. Young-ae still cannot remember the last 4 digits. Nak-jun comes up with a solution. They turn the numbers into a rhythm based on Hae-sook's old scolding style, then add a familiar lyric. Somehow, that strange method works, and Young-ae remembers. It is exactly the kind of ridiculous plan that would only work on Young-ae. A normal person might write the numbers down or repeat them calmly. Young-ae needs the numbers turned into something loud, emotional, and tied to Hae-sook's personality before they stick in her head. The next day, Young-ae goes to buy a lottery ticket. She begins marking the numbers exactly as Hae-sook told her. But before she fills in the final number, she sees a delivery man who owes money. After one moment of hesitation, she drops the pen and chases him. The chase lasts all day, and she misses the deadline to buy the ticket. Later, she hears the winning numbers announced and realizes they match the dream exactly. The prize is enormous, and Young-ae is furious at herself. Since she has no one else to blame, she takes her frustration out on the debtor in front of her. The two argue in the street, and an elderly woman mistakes them for a couple. The man is pleased by the idea, while Young-ae is annoyed. Later, he begins courting her in his own awkward way. He buys her a pair of sneakers and tells her to wear better shoes if she is going to keep chasing him. Young-ae complains, but she clearly likes the gift. She even sleeps with the shoes on. She loses the lottery money, but gains the start of a relationship with someone who sees her exactly as she is. It is not the jackpot Hae-sook wanted to give her, but it is still a gift. Young-ae misses the money because she cannot ignore the messy life in front of her. That mistake leads her towards someone who notices her habits, her temper, and her endless chasing, then chooses to stay close anyway. With Young-ae alive, Yun-ho ready to reincarnate, Sam-yi released, and old family wounds settled, Hae-sook and Nak-jun decide they are ready to be reborn too. They promise each other they will meet again in the next life and become husband and wife once more. But Nak-jun begins to hesitate. He speaks with the center director and asks how he can ever repay Hae-sook. She gave him her whole life. She cared for him for 60 years, worked a hated job, gave up alcohol, gave up ease, and carried their family through grief. Nak-jun feels that every life with him has forced her to suffer. The director shows him a vision of their past lives. Nak-jun learns that he and Hae-sook have been husband and wife 23 times. The number first sounds like proof of destiny. For Hae-sook, it would be romantic to know they kept finding each other. For Nak-jun, it lands differently. He starts wondering whether destiny has been kind to them, or whether it has trapped Hae-sook in the same pattern of sacrifice again and again. At first, that sounds romantic, but to Nak-jun, it becomes painful. If they keep meeting as husband and wife, maybe Hae-sook will keep being pulled into the same fate, loving him, caring for him, and losing pieces of herself for him. On the day of reincarnation, Hae-sook and Nak-jun walk through the gate together. Inside is a long road. They walk arm in arm, and Nak-jun even carries her on his back. Near the final door, Nak-jun brings up something they once said on Earth. He had told her that marriage can be the continuation of past life ties, and sometimes people who were enemies in one life meet again as spouses in another. Hae-sook asks whether they were married before. Nak-jun tells her they have been married 23 times. Hae-sook is happy. She thinks this means their love always finds its way back. She hopes they will meet again in the next life too. But Nak-jun says they should not. He tells her he has held on to her for too long. In every life, he has made her suffer. This time, he wants her to live a different life, one without him, one where she does not have to spend herself taking care of him. Hae-sook does not want to let him go, but Nak-jun is firm. He is not leaving because he loves her less. He is stepping away because he loves her enough to stop asking for another lifetime. At the final door, Hae-sook walks forward alone. She is reborn into a life without Nak-jun beside her. The drama does not show every detail of that life. It simply lets time pass. Hae-sook grows old again and reaches the end of another lifetime. At the border between life and death, Nak-jun appears before her. After all his effort to let her go, he still comes back at the end. Hae-sook looks at him and says she cannot live without him. Nak-jun answers that he cannot live without her either. His attempt to free her does not erase their bond. Hae-sook did live a life that was not built around caring for him, but when that life is over, the feeling between them remains. They tried to separate for mercy. They tried to stop repeating the same painful fate, but when everything ends, they still find each other again. Hae-sook and Nak-jun's story ends there, with two souls facing each other at the edge of another life. Their love is not simple. and it is not painless. But for them, it is still the place they return to. That's all for today's drama recap. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share. I'll see you in the next one.